launching from that point in any other additional projects. So we're going to talk about infrastructure tonight. That primarily consists of projects that maintain the function of your buildings or the integrity of the structures. So think one-to-one replacements, roofs, boilers, parking lots. What we're not going to talk about tonight, but we'll talk about in future phases, would be projects that would be considered maybe educational or academic improvements. So renovating a specific space, let's say, for a certain program or curriculum need. We're not going to talk about facility improvements necessarily. So we're going to talk a lot about like asphalt, for example, but not projects that would be kind of rearranging the parking lots to improve traffic flows. So we're going to kind of stick to the basics tonight, and that's where we're going to present to you. So on the next slide. So this is the timeline that we've put together. We've got 4 phases, starting with tonight, the infrastructure assessment. And that after each one of these phases, we're going to come back to the board with an update. So next month, we're going to focus on facility improvements and educational needs. Then another board update. And then we're going to have a community focus panel and staff survey. So the information that we present and the feedback we get from the board, we're going to get the feedback from the community and the staff as well. And then that's going to put us a good position in phase 4 to develop a program that suits the needs of anchor-based schools, and ultimately, potentially culminating in a board recommendation by the administration in May. Next slide. So who's participating? So we have a pretty extensive team. So on kind of our side of the table, we have Bart Mallow, and we have several people within our planning department and our technology design services group as part of the team. French associate Dale Jerome, who's here tonight, is part of that team, and he'll kind of move forward on some of the information we provide next month. Now his engineers, he's got mechanical and electrical engineers, civil engineering part of his team. We've had roof consultants, civil engineers, and pool consultants, all part of the process here.
And from the school district side, we've included, I know Mr. Moses and Mr. Richards both have participated in the facility walkthroughs. We've toured every building, as well as our auxiliary buildings, Big Stone, Bloom, and all our storage facilities. In all those visits, we've included our building principals, our support staff, teachers, if they happen to be walking in the halls or we're in a classroom, just asking, what's working, what's not, just getting feedback from everybody involved.
So the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about the process. And so, this is Anchor Bay's unique, every district's a little unique. So it hasn't been, we don't look at it as like a linear process. We want to kind of bring the right pieces together so that we can provide the information necessary. So, for example, in this phase, we've completed the walkthroughs, as Corey had mentioned, both with your staff and our team of experts with you. We've completed a energy study as part, and that's going to be part of the packet that you receive after this. So, and then as we move into different phases, these different steps will start to take shape.
The one thing that I want to point out is the amount of collaboration we've had from every level. So I've had many bonds under my belt, in the last 25 years from a different perspective. I've not been involved in the pre-planning. It's always been, hey, after the bond's been passed, Corey's going to organize things and, keep records and things. So I've been extremely proud of our team and the amount of collaboration that's been involved, the amount of time we've met weekly since we started the process, involved, central office administrators, your building principals, the bond team, like I said, is working every week, just as updates. And like I said, it's been a very collaborative process, and very proud of the team and the work we've done so far.
Next slide. And that's something, Mr. Jankowski's been pretty adamant about it. Like kind of every step of the way is making sure that, as we send out invites, we're including the right people, in on the right meetings. So like our purpose, our team, Bart Mallow, French Associates, I kind of view us as, our role is providing information and data for the board and administration to make good decisions. So all of the people you just mentioned, you're experts in education, our experts in, say, mechanical, kind of all of that coming together. It's our job to synthesize that information and provide it in a simple way that you guys can understand, and then make good decisions based on that information. So that's what we're going to do throughout the process here. Next slide. So I think the next 2 slides are really important to understand, kind of where you stand with your infrastructure. So the community's been previous slide, please. Has been very supportive of Anchor-based school district. You've passed 4 bonds. You've passed the 96 bond, the 99, 2003, and 2017 bond for a total of about $210 million. Now, when you look over the past 20 years, of that 210, about 58 million of that has been spent in your facilities. So we've got some kind of numbers on the previous slide that would show like how much per square foot, how much per building. And those numbers that as you look at kind of the age of facilities just won't stand up like over the test of time, let's say.
Lisa, can you go back just one slide?
Yeah, one slide, please. So yeah, so 2.6 million per year, 180,000 per facility, and about $2 per square foot annual improvement. So as we start looking at some of the potential costs in the future, you'll see where in order to kind of maintain the facilities you have, against the investments you originally made, some investments are going to be made in the future. Next slide. So if you look at this slide, this graph, what this is showing you is each one of those color lines represents one of the bond programs. So the red line is 1996, blue is 1999, green 2003, and purple 2017. That number on the left is how many millions of dollars that the district received as part of that bond program. And as you move down to the right, that's the rate at which you spent that money. So that's basically the time that you put construction in place. So if you put 2 lines and kind of split the middle of those, and then you track out to today, it's been about 20 to 25 years, since you made those kind of original investments, such as the building of the high school. So this 10-year period as part of the assessment we're going to talk about, now you're, 30 to 35 years out. So that's kind of a key moment in which that reinvestment needs to take place in your facilities. When you start thinking about how long equipment lasts, how long roofs and parking lots last, I mean, you start to get into some critical time frames there. Next slide. So findings. So we'll go, next slide. So just a little overview. Buildings and grounds aren't overall in fairly good condition. When we start kind of nitpicking some things, it's kind of hard to lose track. You have some beautiful facilities. I mean, the high school, that building, since it's been built, has been, a lot of people talk about Anchor Bay High School. It's a beautiful facility. So while you do need some investments, there is a lot here to be proud of. But as we saw in that previous slide, as the time goes further and further away from that construction, those buildings start to get older. We're starting to reach the point now where reinvestments will need to be made to extend the useful life of those facilities. It's probably also worth noting that technology was not a significant part of the last 2 bond programs. Over the last 20 years, there's been about $5 million budgeted for technology. We'll talk a lot more in depth on technology at the next meeting, and tonight we'll focus on infrastructure. But that is an area, I think, as we start looking at some things that maybe the district is a little lacking, evident by the the wireless project that's going on now, and the desire to put that in quickly. So yeah. So we're going to look at this in 6 categories. Yeah. What's that? Yes. Yes. So we're going to look at this in 6 categories. So critical needs. Think 1 to 3 years. Those things that are kind of highest on the priority list. Safety and security, nowadays that's obviously a high priority. And then we start looking just as time goes on, things that start falling into that bucket of projects that need to be completed 4 to 7 years. Energy saving. So these would be projects that have the benefit of improving the facility, but also this added benefit of potentially lowering your energy costs. Future needs, which would be 8 to 10 years out, and then fixtures, furniture, and equipment. So that's another place where we'll spend more time next month talking about, but this time we'll talk about probably 2 key components within that category. Next slide. So critical needs. So again, 1 to 3 years. You can go to the next slide again. So we've got 6 areas here. We've got roof replacement, building envelope, architectural improvements, mechanical systems, electrical systems, and site pavings. And in this area, we'll talk a little bit about each one, and then kind of a little more generally in some of the other categories. But overall, we see about $31.3 million in critical needs. Next slide. So roof replacement. So the district has about 1.2 million square feet in roofs, which means you'd have to replace about 40,000 per year to stay within about a 25-year replacement cycle. So and that compounds every year that you don't do something. So as part of the assessment, we had a roof consultant walk through, and so that $4.1 million represents everything that they graded as poor as part of that assessment. Next slide. And so this would just be an example of the work that was performed. So this is Lighthouse. You can see kind of some shaded areas that show stuff that was done recently versus stuff that's older. And so they looked at it based on age and condition. And this 4.1 equals about 158,000 square feet of a roof replacement. Now, the 2017 bond did include about 250,000 square feet worth of roofs, but we'll see kind of later on the impact of time that has on your roofs and everything 2003 and prior. Next slide.
Sorry.
Yep.
On that previous slide, I take it red is severe.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So we'll color code it in such a way that and quantify it based on square footage of the areas and grade them in a way that we can try to project out when those roofs will need to be replaced. Building envelope. So building envelope, think windows, masonry, metal siding, anything on the outside of the building. And so there's some pictures here that I know Corey has shared with you in the past as part of her assessment.
All right, now, when you guys look at the picture of the high school there, just so you know, that's been fixed. That's not a worry now. But I also wanted to touch on building envelopes in the other buildings as well. So I mentioned earlier that we looked at all the auxiliary buildings. So let's say Big Stone School, it was moved to Anchor Bay in 1956 from 27 and Frost. We're at a point now where the foundation is going to need work. So that's just another piece of, the building envelope. It's a smaller piece compared to some of the other buildings, but that is one of them. Keep in mind when you guys are looking at this, that these assessments, and I know Daryl's already touched on it, is what it's going to take to maintain our buildings. These are not upgrades. These are, we're strictly maintaining when you guys are looking at these.
Yeah, and so like that metal siding, for example, then there's a curb appeal
Right.
aspect to that, but that's also a detail you have at several buildings where just with the amount of caulk that needs to be repaired and the horizontal surfaces but that's a water infiltration, and that's at Lighthouse as well. And so just
In the high
kind of
school.
looking at nice,
Right.
kind of looking at those areas and just accounting for replacement of those. Next slide. Architectural improvements. So we tried to stick to this, definition of critical, right? Like, school's still going to start the next day if some of the architectural components are older, but there were some things that I think the district just felt didn't really stand up to the standards. And so that 2.5 million represents those items. So if you go to the next slide, for example, the original restroom facilities. So at Ashley Elementary, those restroom facilities that have basically been untouched for 70 years. So, those are an area that we would see as maybe more critical, or 20-plus-year-old flooring systems. You can see like an example of that Lighthouse. And again, some images maybe that Corey has shared with you in the
Right.
past.
In the previous bond, we did upgrade some carpeted areas. So at Ashley, Lottie, Sugar Bush, we did do carpeting there. We also did a little bit of flooring at both of the middle schools, and then the counseling and main office at the high school as well.
Mhm.
But as you can see, like in the pictures there, that's Lighthouse, the music room there. So there's still some buildings out there that may be a bit older that haven't received the attention that some of the other ones did in the last bond.
Next slide. Mechanical systems. So this is probably this is the biggest piece of the pie. And I think, from Corey's perspective, an area that really should be the focus of any, potential bond program. So what we're looking at, again, just going back to some of those original slides, is this equipment now is 17 to 25 years old. And as you start moving into, kind of near needs and future needs, it just kind of gets older and older systems. Now, we walked through with engineers, and that's important to have them kind of analyze the age and the condition of the systems, but also working with Corey to make sure that operations and maintenance weighed in, because the oldest isn't always the worst. Sometimes there's newer equipment maybe that would kind of fall in to something that should be replaced sooner. So, both of those were taken into account as we put this together. So again, that's about 275 pieces of equipment that fall into that range. That cost also includes some updated plumbing systems and a district-wide building management system. We'll kind of hold some thoughts on that because we're going to talk about that one a little, but that's probably a really important one as part of, any future projects. Electrical systems, a surprising 0 here. So electrical systems, the lights are going to turn on for the next 3 years if you walk in and turn the lights on, right? Now, some of the components, the distribution of that, transformers, main distribution panels, that infrastructure has a much longer useful life calculation than, say, a piece of mechanical equipment or flooring. So at this time, you're in good condition. Now, we'll talk about light replacement. You did some light replacement in 2017 that I think was well received. I mean, it really impacts the the learning environment within those spaces. And so there's the potential to complete some upgrades in that energy savings component as well. Asphalt and concrete replacement, you have about 1.7 million square feet in paving. That means you'd probably have to spend about $420,000 per year in today's dollars in order to maintain a 20-year life cycle. So what's in this 10.1 million would be isolated concrete replacement. So they walked out and specifically marked where you have pitch issues or cracks, that type of thing. A lot of correction of drainage issues. So we know we have a drainage issue out in front of the high school. Lighthouse has is holding water and has some pretty significant drainage issues. So those we would see as kind of critical infrastructure, and then replacement of kind of key paved areas as part of that value. And just to put this in perspective, 13 miles of 2-lane highway from here at McDonald's to south is what $1.7 million is. So the district has, a considerable amount of paving that you have to maintain in order to, it requires a lot in order to maintain that much square footage. So again, this is based on, age and condition. The assessment includes various unit prices for the replacement. So it's not always just go in and rip everything out and start over. Sometimes a mill and cap may be appropriate. Sometimes full reconstruction is. So the engineers looked at it in that way to try to really kind of key in how much some of the stuff would cost, that we're not just kind of blanketing the district. I mean, it's pretty detailed in what those unit prices and the descriptions are within the assessment. Safety and security. You can go to the next slide. So we've got 5 areas here. So building infrastructure. The building infrastructure consists of replacement of original fire alarm systems. It also includes classroom door security hardware. So in cases of emergency, quick lock, thumb latch, indicator of whether it's locked. So similar to what you've seen put in other places with other devices. Probably the most secure way is to do that through the door hardware. And so we've included that at all student occupied spaces as part of the assessment. Video surveillance and access control, you have a little bit of that in the district at the front entrances. This would be the cost if the district was looking to kind of expand that across district wide, which we see, being pretty common nowadays within K-12 facilities. Emergency alert and public address, kind of think about those two things together. They both serve to improve communication and emergency response time in the case of an emergency. So those systems kind of work together to notify both internally and externally in case of an emergency. So near needs. Now we're into this kind of 4 to 6 year period. We have all of the same descriptions here. We reviewed these under kind of the same criteria, and we'll kind of focus in on just 2 areas within this, which would be the next slide. So architectural improvements, 4 to 6 years out now, your newest facility is now 25 years old. So some of those architectural components within the facility start to move to, a more critical, nature. Things like casework, start to wear, doors, hardware, flooring, those types of items. Technology infrastructure. This really could, and as we move through this process and prioritization starts to take place, some of those could move into maybe more of a critical need. It depends on some decisions you make with like video surveillance and access control, right? So now some of that infrastructure needs to be beefed up in order to handle that. But for the purpose now, we thought it was best just to kind of put this in one bucket. So this is to replace what you think of with technology, and it's the blue cables, right? So there's, we've estimated you probably have about 120 miles of blue cables running through these buildings. And so a lot of that was originally installed in the 90s. And so we've included some costs in here to understand what that would be to replace that. Also included in this value would be phone systems and clocks. So, 4 years from now, you can still access the internet with the system you have. You might just have trouble with speed. I know Tim and the technology department IT department have trouble maintaining some of those. You just have to buy parts on eBay as like kind of these switches and things get older. But technically, I guess you could leave that for that 4 to 6 year period. Future needs. So it gets a little harder to project out into into that 7 to 10 year range, especially on things like certain systems, like technology systems. You don't know what you're really going to want, I guess, at some of those times. But there are some things we definitely know with Anchor Bay, and that would be the roofs specifically in this category. So if you went to the next slide. So something to think about here is over 75% of the district's roofing was installed and or replaced during the 96, 99, and 2003 bond. So you did put those investments in 17, and I think there's about 250,000 square feet there. But by the time you reach the 7 to 10 year period, even your newest roofs from 2003, are 35 years old. So we know that you have a bubble kind of coming in roofs. And so in order to, handle that, either that would have to be something that you'd have to plan for in that 7 to 10 year period, or you'd have to start tackling some of those projects sooner. But that's definitely something that you guys should know is coming. Energy savings. 3 categories here: window replacement, keep the cold air out and keep cold air, heat, the hot air in. So that's, that's pretty standard. And that's just replacing some of those windows based on, the age of the facilities. Temperature controls and light fixture replacement with the 2 we'll kind of dig in a little bit on. Go to the next slide. So for temperature controls, the district, and Corey was a big part of this process in 17, was pretty exhaustive at exploring different options. So there's a lot of different systems out there and software that you can be involved with in order to install. And so they went through that process at 17, and that was installed at Middle School North, Middle School South, and then the boiler rooms at the heating and cooling plants at both buildings, and then kind of sporadically at some of the elementaries. But about 75% of your square footage is still under older systems, which are in some cases really antiquated. If you go to the next slide, please. So this is the 3 systems you have. So you have systems that were real prevalent in the 1950s. So pneumatic. So that uses air compressors and hoses to move air around the building. So the high school actually has pneumatic controls. You have control pack. That would have been stuff that was put in the early 90s bonds. That's really 80s technology. It was a lot of those buildings were right at kind of the digital revolution when it came to controls. And so you kind of got caught kind of at the end of that with some older control systems. And then today is the system that Corey and her team selected as part of the 17 bond. So that 4.2 million would get rid of the old systems that you have and bring everything onto a newer platform.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about the temperature controls too. So the ones that we've brought online, we've seen a tremendous amount of billing efficiencies, labor reduction, as well as just comfort level in the buildings. Mm-hmm. So when we walk the buildings, you go to elementary schools that don't have the newer systems, you'll hear a lot of complaints of it's too hot or it's too cold. You go to the middle schools where you're fully integrated, those complaints are far and few between. So a lot of that is because we can see this in real time. So we can monitor, and when we see a classroom go down, we can immediately provide relief, and we can a lot of times diagnose it just from the desktop. So then we can go out, get parts and go there, saving, valuable time to somebody, one of our HVAC technicians that are coming in to repair. So I've seen it, it's been extremely beneficial. We can also, rather than going to every single LAN that we've got to reschedule. So on a snow day, we would have to go into every building, go to every LAN, and actually program that. Well, it's probably costing us more in labor than it is what we're saving in energy. So now, from our desktops or our laptops or my phone, we can go in and just hit snow day for those buildings, and it just goes into an automatic setback.
And as we move forward through, like a prioritization process, sometimes new controls on older equipment can be effective, as Corey is describing. And so that'll be a tool we can use to try to stay within a chosen budget, let's say. Fixtures, furniture, and equipment. Again, there will be this kind of educational academic component of this that we'll talk about next month, but there are 2 areas within this that we consider infrastructure. That would be bus purchases and custodial equipment. We've been working closely with Todd Rathbun and his team to identify really the needs here. And so really what the goal is to get to a sustainable bus replacement. So you've been somewhat a victim of your own success in the past and have made kind of large purchases of buses at one time. I think what Todd and the district is trying to do now is get to a place where you can have a sustainable replacement schedule of 3 to 4 per year based on, a 13-year cycle, right size the fleet, get rid of some of the older buses so that you can manage that well into the future.
And then custodial equipment, while a lot of our previous bonds have allocated some funds. It's been very minimal, and it's been kind of hit and miss on which buildings have received what. So we're still operating in a lot of equipment that's 15 years older or older. At the high school, we did buy some new riding scrubbers, but the old ones went to middle school south. So the ones that they're using at the middle school are 20 years old. So there is an investment there that we need to look at as well.
So a summary. So next slide. So what we see here is just kind of working left to right. I think when we emailed it, cut off some of the bottom descriptions there, but each one of those colors represents one of the categories that we just went through, right? So as we start with critical needs at 33 million, and then we start layering on some of those other options, you can see that we get at a range between 33 and 129 million. And so as we move through the process and we start looking at some of these other educational and facility improvement needs, we'll kind of continue that process of layering those on. And I think what our goal is that as you start to prioritize projects, you want to know kind of everything and understand the opportunity cost for choosing one thing versus another. It's like, if I decide this, what am I giving up? So we really want to start kind of layering those other projects on top so that the board and the administration have a good understanding of, what a potential program could look like. So what's next? Again, facility improvements and educational needs. That work's been happening really. We're talking about that like it's a phase 2 next month. That work started around the new year, and we've been working, like Corey mentioned, weekly on this. I mean, this next piece is a big part of any potential program. So we can look at some of the stuff we've been working on. Go to the next slide. Next one. So some things that are underway already. We spent a lot of time talking about CTE. That's a program that we think, that we gather is really important to Anchor Bay. And so we've been working closely with Mr. Jankowski, as well as Sherry Kenward, high school principal, trying to understand, not just what renovations may need to take place to improve those programs, what programs you might look to do in the future, and also what's the right place or location within the district for those programs. So kind of all of that is on the table, and we're working through that, and we'll have, we'll be able to present some options to that next month. We're looking at district reconfiguration and utilization. So we are preparing options to look at, what's the best use of your existing square footage, both to be efficient, but also cost effective. And so we've started looking at what some potential options might be there. Classroom technology, through the walkthroughs, one thing that kind of stands out when you go into some of the buildings are those tube TVs in the classrooms. And so, our technology services group is, we'll work with both your educators and your tech department to start putting some options together there, whether that's, projectors, displays, interactive displays, or some combination of those, to make sure that we're presenting some of those options as well. Arts and athletics, we've met with those departments to, categorize and catalog what their needs might be. And the building principals have been working with Dale at French Associates to start maybe reimagining the media centers and what those spaces might be. A lot of those went in again at that night time, and they feel like libraries. Well, what's the need today? So, they're doing some work on that. As well as a bunch of these other ones, not to put any importance on any of them, but there's, a lot of these items we'll be bringing to you next month. And then lastly, the focus panels and staff survey that will happen in April. And, the purpose of that is to kind of, as we go through this process of feedback from the board, we present those options to a community, a focus panel consisting of community members as well as staff, and then as well as this full staff survey to really gather that feedback, make sure that kind of to give you information to make sure you feel like we're going in the right direction, identify options, potentially refine a proposal based on that, kind of strengthen the thinking of the group, so that, that all of Anchor Bay School District has some input on a potential program. Questions?
So I want to make sure that I understand.
Yeah.
Your number was somewhere around $130 million, and that's going to suffice for roughly 10 years out. Did I understand?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So when we look at, I think the key thing is that when that construction was put in place in the 90s, right? So you built some beautiful buildings in the 90s, and as you look 10 years out, those buildings are now 35 years old. So a lot of the equipment, roofs, parking lots in those buildings will need a reinvestment to extend the useful life.
What's the life expectancy of a building?
So
Obviously,
Yeah.
there becomes a
Yeah.
balance of, you can keep putting money into things.
Well, what I'll say to that is we are exploring those options and that we will have some of that information for you at the next board meeting. That is something we spent the last 2 weeks kind of with Mr. Jankowski really digging into deeply and looking at, some of the obvious facilities that are reaching 70, 60, 70 years old. And at what point does, investing another round of money not become, the prudent move? And so we'll provide some information on that for the next meeting.
When you look at other school districts, is this common?
Yeah, it's, you made that big investment. You went out to the community, footed the bill for that, for lack of a better word. And so, now as that time has gone by, it would be pretty typical to have to go back into those facilities and make some improvements. And another thing too is, just educationally, like time marches on, right? So like the buildings that were built back then, from an educational standpoint, might not be as useful as it would be as if you built something today. There would be some differences there. And that's really Dale's area. And so Dale will be happy to talk about, the kind of those educational improvements with you guys next month.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, the other part of it is we are looking at sustainability so that it's not something where, in 10 years, all of a sudden we have to go for another huge one. It's like, what can we do like with buses or anything so that we're rotating it enough so you don't have this issue where it all comes due at once.
Yep. All set.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we will move on to the hearing of the public. I have a few submissions to address the board. If you'd like to come up to the podium when your name is called, there should be a microphone there that you can turn on and use your comment time. I have Rich Glaz. Yes, please, just so we can hear.
Either that or if you want to, Corey, if you can give him the microphone.
Hi. Is it on? Okay, my name is Rich Glaze. I was the restoration project manager for the Big Stone School. And I understand that there is slowly or right now an issue with the Big Stone School, but I don't have all the details. If the board could give me some details as to what's going on with the condition of the Big Stone School right now.
So we don't use this time to like kind of go back and forth, but we will definitely, we have your contact information and Mr. Jankowski can get back with you privately to
Okay. When we first started this project, it was the New Baltimore Bicentennial Project. And Anchor Bay supported that because the building was on the property of the Anchor Bay school system. And the school system moved the building, which was being used for storage, to the location it's at now. At that point, I was able to locate another school that had a bell tower, and I located a bell, and the school system graciously raised the bell tower onto the school and then helped locate the bell on top of the inside the bell tower. And we were able to raise money for the restoration. I'd left donation boxes all over the city, and the people, donated nickels, dimes, quarters until we had enough money to pay for a foundation, which was negotiated through Toit Stone Yards. And they put in the original, and at that time, the school superintendent negotiated a great discount. So we probably pay 10 cents on the dollar to do that. And I understand there may be a problem with the foundation. We raised money through the AMVETS and other organizations to help with the restoration. And if there's a problem now, I know Ms. Jane Lenaway would also like to address you, but there are ways to raise money to go back and do this. And also I have a sheet of what must be done to move historic buildings in the city of New Baltimore. So I'd like to leave that with the board later today, because there are rather strict guidelines on moving historic buildings, which of course that is. And you can actually Google Big Stone School, Michigan, and it comes up. So the world knows about the Big Stone School, which is kind of nice. And there's several of us who were involved with the original project. It started as a bicentennial project, but finished as a Michigan sesquicentennial project. That was the span of years it took. And at the rededication of the Big Stone, Governor Jim Blanchard was there to rededicate that school. So just a few tidbits. There are ways to raise money, and Ms. Jane Lenaway will probably give you a little insight on that. Just wanted to say, I've been there since the beginning, and I live 2 doors away, and every time a class comes in and rings that bell, I can hear it, but I got to ring that bell first. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll have Ms. Lenaway, if you'd like to address.
Hi, guys. I'm a longtime Anchor Bay resident, and I was a teacher for the school district for a while. Volunteered like crazy. I was involved in the Big Stone School Committee. That school is a very, very important building in this community. It's also part of the New Baltimore Historic District. It's not in the main section of the district, but it was annexed and it is part of the historic district. So we need to keep that in mind. I've brought members from, I'm also a member of the Historical Society. I'm a trustee. I have the Vice President, Vince Nestico, from the Historical Society, our secretary, our past president. We have another younger member who actually did some learning in the Big Stone School and loved every minute of it. And another trustee with me, but we're all concerned about keeping the Big Stone in Anchor Bay. And as Rich alluded to, if there needs to be some fundraising, I've already talked to a few people, and there's a possibility of some of the organizations of Anchor Bay, possibly Anchor Bay Foundation, and the Lions always help out, but we will be more than happy to help with any restoration. We're just concerned that it stays. I had a meeting with Mayor Simon today, and he has the same feeling. It was a joint project between Anchor Bay School District, the Anchor Bay New Baltimore Historic Society, and the city of New Baltimore. So that's how many people were involved and put this together. This is all information on the Big Stone School. And I talked to Mr. Jankowski today, and I told him I'd be more than happy to bring it to the school district and have his secretary make copies of it. The city also wants copies of this information. And Mr. Jankowski said that they would like us to dig out some information on some of the schools and why Dean Aldred was named Dean Aldred School. And we can help with all of that, because we love to have history taught in Anchor Bay. We have students, and before COVID, we had students every spring coming through our museum, which I hope everybody does come through when we're open again. And the kids were just fascinated and enthralled with the antiques and the history, Anchor Bay history. There's so much of it that's available. So the New Baltimore Historical Society would like to be of help, and apparently so would the city of New Baltimore, again, be help to decide the fate of Anchor Bay Big Stone School. So Jim, how many school districts have one? And Mr. Jankowski talked about a committee, and I said I'd be more than happy to be involved with the committee, and so would our Vice President Vince Nestico. And I think, I didn't even make the bell ring. I do have a picture that, yeah, if you could meet me. Please. This is the Big Stone School when it was up. I need this back, by the way, but this is when it was being transported. It was originally at 27 Mile and Frost. And then before the school district put it behind what's now Middle School North. And then it got here. So if you guys would like to look at the picture, and then I'll have copies made of a whole lot of information. The Historical Society is kind of on call for everybody. Any resident of New Baltimore that comes in and wants the history of their house, we try to help them with it. So, you know, why not the school district? It was in real rough shape. Our volunteers did a fantastic job with it. And thanks for your consideration.
Thank you.
We'll be around.
And I have Mr. Nestico.
Good evening. I'm Vince Nestico, 51420 Washington. I'm actually one block away from the Big Stone School. I think Jane covered most of the ground we were going to talk about, but I would like to add that as a commissioner for the city of New Baltimore's historic district, I just wanted to make sure that everyone on the board knows that any action taken with the Big Stone School would have to go through the Historic District Commission for a certificate of appropriateness. And that's all I have. Oh, no, that's okay. You covered everything we wanted to.
Okay, thank you. I have Kelly Noland.
Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to attend tonight's school board meeting and introduce myself. Hi, Jonathan. My name is Kelly Noland, and I am running for the Democratic position in District 63. And I hope to be of good service to you guys. And if you have any questions, I will be leaving my literature. And please be sure to hit me up if you need any help or any information. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have Jackie Eubanks.
Dear Anchor Bay School Board and Superintendent, we the undersigned demand masks no longer be mandated for bus drivers and students who ride the bus. We understand a common excuse made to uphold this mandate is that buses are public transportation, meaning they fall under federal jurisdiction. Therefore, the school board and superintendent have no say on this policy, referencing the CDC order effective February 1st, 2021, under Section 361 of the Public Health Service Act. Said order is solely justified by the phrase emergency powers and is stated to be enforced by the Transportation Security Administration. We wish to dispel this myth and inform you that the legal definition of public transportation does not in fact include school buses. In fact, Title 49, Subtitle 3, Chapter 53, Subsection 5302 of U.S. Code specifically states that the term public transportation does not include school bus service. Therefore, Anchor Bay School District buses do not fall under the CDC order. There being no legal federal authority to mandate masks on school buses under the CDC order, we turn to the issue of the state. The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services recommends universal masking under their COVID-19 guidance policy. This has no force of law, and the Anchor Bay School District has already determined masking shall no longer be mandated in school buildings. Why should school buses be any different? It being left to the school district's policy determined by the school board members, we turn to the reasoning which the school board ought to make masking on school buses optional. Masking, contrary to the CDC's claims, does not reduce the transmission of COVID-19. When making this claim, the CDC references one singular study, whereupon actually reading it, it becomes clear that said study's results were inconclusive at best. In fact, data collected by the COVID-19 school response dashboard run by education groups, including the school superintendent Superintendent's Association found that school districts without mask mandates had lower case rates than schools with mask mandates. So much for following the science. Besides masking's ineffectiveness at preventing viral transmission, masking is detrimental to children's health and development. Masks trap exhalation in front of the nose and mouth, causing children and bus drivers to inhale the very things their bodies are trying to expel: CO2, bacteria, and viruses. This creates more illness, not less. In fact, there has been a dramatic increase in diseases such as bacterial pneumonia among otherwise healthy children. Disease is much more dangerous for children than COVID-19, which has a 99.99% survival rate for kids. Masking also restricts the ability to read facial expressions and hear speech, both of which are critical to children's cognitive and psychological development. Reports of dramatic increases in speech impediments, speech delays, and the need for speech therapy for otherwise developmentally normal children are surfacing. Speech pathologists recently reported a 400% increase in the number of children needing speech therapy. We, the undersigned, are bus drivers for the Anchor Bay School District who demand you make masking for us and for school bus riding students optional. We respectfully ask you to respond within a week. If you choose to keep the mandate in place, we will be more than happy to take legal action. Thank you.
We'll move on to communications.
We have no communications.
All right. So tonight's consent agenda consists of the approval of the minutes of the January 26th, 2022 regular meeting, the personnel report, the financial report, and the bills payable for January of 22. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, go ahead and call the roll.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes.
Motion passes. Moving to new business, we have a presentation from Mr. McDonald regarding the Return to Learn programming that we are wrapping up.
Oh, you don't want to sit up here? I think the president would be okay with you joining us up here.
Oh, it's on, it's just muted. There you go.
All right, good evening, board. We're going to do a presentation as required on our progress for our educational goals that we set forth in our Return to Learn plan. We are required to give you a mid-year update, so to kind of give you a snapshot of the strategies and in the scores that we have so far. We also have to come back in June and give you another report that will show more of the growth. So what you have in front of you, hopefully, did you get a copy or no?
No. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so what we have on the screen is, do we have a remote, Lisa, or are you gonna switch?
Just
that
tell her
one?
next slide. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. We have two goals, and our goals are really pretty straightforward as are most districts. And they are to show growth in reading and in math. So by the end of the school year, our goal is to show growth in both reading and math as measured by NWEA MAP growth for grades K through 11. And then we
Excuse me for a second, Mr. McDonald. That group in the back of the room needs to continue to converse. If you could step outside, that'd be great. Because I do have some other folks here that want to hear the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. And a local assessment for our grade 12. And that was a new assessment that we developed with a team of our 12th grade teachers in both math and reading and scored it through Performance Matters. So what we have is some of the strategies is made sure that teachers were given time to analyze their data on our professional development days. We just had one. They were given that afternoon to do that. We also made some investments. We purchased the IXL software, and it was implemented in all the buildings. I had to update this slide today because of the number keeps going up. So when I first submitted it last week to Mr. Jankowski, it said approximately 1,000 students had answered over 430,000 questions. And just in 1 week, we did 10 more thousand questions throughout the district. So the buildings are using it. It constantly is going up. So also our second goal is by the end of the year, school district is going to show growth K through 11 and in 12th grade in the area of math. So both reading and math. So it's the same as above, just in terms of math. And in some additional strategies, I think on the next slide, to go along with just some of the investment with the IXL in both math and reading, along with giving time for that professional development and making sure that both buildings and teachers are breaking down their data within the buildings and in their individual classrooms. As you know, there was an investment made in staff. So starting with more time for tutoring, both before, after, and during school. At all levels, and increased staff that we're really proud of with the literacy specialist at each elementary. So there is a huge increase in focus on literacy at the elementary level, which is most critical level. Is where they're learning to read, along with academic coaches at all the secondary buildings. So those academic coaches focus on, they're the staff that are oftentimes at the secondary buildings, working with the at-risk students, bringing them to the IXL labs and working on those skills with them. They also focus on the child as an individual and take a look at, if they are struggling, why are they struggling? Do they need help with organization and such like that? So we now have an academic coach at both middle schools and the high school. In the past, they were sharing some of those people. In addition to that, as you know, we added counselors at the high school and middle school level. So that's just more eyes on our students and their needs, as well as our professional development, which is focused on those goals in terms of our literacy essentials, which is a program that we started right before the COVID and the pandemic, and we resurrected it and brought it back. It's at kind of the core of all the essential practices needed for literacy. And we've had ACRI in our district for going almost 10 years now. And that's Adolescent Critical Reading Initiative. And we use that at the middle school level. And we've always seen great growth with a select group of kids that need it. And what we did this last professional development day and was part of our school improvement plan through our school improvement process was to have those teachers share with all secondary teachers those strategies, knowing that they don't have the same structure in place as they do in the ACRI classroom with the small groups and so on. But there's certain strategies with teaching vocabulary and just different text structures, questioning, that they were able to share with everyone. So as a universal strategy, they did a really nice job at our last professional development day, this just yesterday. So those are a lot of the strategies. What I'm I'm not gonna read every slide to you in terms of the data, but what we were able to do, and just tell you a little bit about how we're supposed to present the data. We have to present it by grade level. We have to present it by building. We have to present it by any subgroup that we may have, and a subgroup would mean a group of 30 or more students. So in some areas, you might see at the high school, you might see a couple more subgroups because it's a larger building, and then some of the smaller buildings, you won't see those subgroups in those buildings, and that's why. Because it didn't amount to 30. And on the graphs, I know it's kind of hard to see on the little screen, but and I should have brought my readers, but you'll see the line to the left, the graph to the left is reading, and the lighter one is math, I believe, and then it's broken down, yep, by subgroups where we had the data. I would just point out the one African-American data, the line to the right, it was not available for whatever reason. I don't know if enough people didn't test on that particular subject. So I was trying to dig that out. That was on our own data. I just wanted to point that out, that it wasn't that they didn't have any growth. So that was just kind of a little glitch there. Next slide. So as we work through these slides on the performance matters, that was on percentage of growth. We were able to look at the fall and winter. On these slides from K through 11, what it's showing you is the mean RIT score. RIT score is the measurement for NWEA. And it just kind of gives you we've presented it in the past where it just gives you a point of reference in their score. You guys are probably all familiar with your own students. And what we're sharing here does not give you a lot of context because it's really baseline data. So at the end, what I was able to do, because I didn't have the data for all the subgroups as reported at this point, the idea again was to show that in June. That's what the requirement is. This meets the requirement of kind of showing you this is where we're at, strategies we put in place, where we're at now. And then in June, you'll get the growth. But what we were able to do, because we did close our winter window, we were able to pull it out locally. And at the end, I shared with you our fall to winter growth, K-12, but it's just as a district. I don't have it by every grade, by every subgroup, but we will have that in June. So as we kind of go through these, Lisa, you can go fairly quick because there's not a lot of context here. It's a lot of baseline. So you can keep scrolling through kind of a few at each, let them, get a look at kind of where our mean RITs are. And you'll see that in June, we'll have the other two graphs to show you the growth. Go ahead and go through those. So we have all the areas accounted for through by building, by grade, by subgroup. And you can look at those to kind of see, how each building compares to our other buildings. Go ahead, keep going till you get to, we're almost there. After McCont's, we'll stop and there'll be a district slide. One thing I can tell you is that when we were able to look at this through the county, we were able to look at slide from during the pandemic, there was a few districts that stood out as those that did not slide like the others did, and we were one of those districts. A lot of them were in the northern part of the county. Armada was another one that did fairly well, Anchor Bay, and a couple others. But the majority, which is data we could share at another time, really showed a big slide. And I think that's a testament. I shared this with our teachers on the professional development day. It was a testament to the double duty that they did by teaching our students both in person and online. I know it was a pain for them, but the proof was there that it helped reduce slide. So what you can see on this slide is you'll be able to see, and we'll look at this for a minute, but it's kindergarten through 5th grade. And I was able to pull district-wide data that will show you fall to winter growth. So this is a mean RIT score in each grade. And we start with, on the far left is reading, fall reading, and then the kind of purple is winter reading. The lighter blue is fall math, and the kind of red is the winter math. So this is district-wide as a composite. You can see K through 5 that in every area we did show growth. And in some areas, quite a bit, especially in the earlier grades. All right, we go to the next slide. And then here we have 6th through 11th. Again, this is the NWA RIT score, and you can see our fall to winter growth. Again, achieve growth in all areas. So we are definitely on track. Sometimes the winter growth is pretty, sometimes is as good as the spring because of, leaps that are made, but we'll be able to take, in June, I'll show you fall to spring. So you'll be able to see the complete year. On the next slide, what we did here, this is the Student Growth Summary Report. This is straight from NWEA. And when you look at these graphs, this is our math, K-12, and the diamond is projected growth through the norm based on NWEA. So that they're setting where we started and to where we should grow based on where we start. And what you want here is you want the blue to be touching the diamond. So in areas where we exceed the diamond are areas that we exceeded projected growth. And areas where we are just below the diamond are areas where we didn't reach the projected growth. And you can see in a lot of areas in math, we did really well. And sometimes, with data, I think some of it was there were some of the areas that actually where we dipped a little bit was math. So we grew a little bit more as we came back. If you switch to the next slide, we'll look at the same for reading. And again, you see some areas where mostly we exceed growth, some where we're under, and some where we're greatly over. And these give us some opportunities to take a look at this growth in grade level by buildings and take a look at, our 6th, 7th grade, and then what are we doing also in 8th grade to exceed growth so much. So the buildings had an afternoon with some guided worksheets to be able to work through their own classroom data, and buildings were able to do that as well. And then I also did share with all of the district-wide growth to the teachers so they could kind of see where we are as a group, and then they look at their own growth in their own classroom, and then also even look at by small groups in the learning continuum so that they kind of know where kids are at and what they're ready for and so on. I can be able to develop small groups. So I think that, it was some pretty good growth based on what we could show. And I'm excited to be able to see, as we continue to work through these strategies to the end of the year, additional growth in June. But if there's any questions at this time, I'd love to answer them.
Thank you. Just if you can give like a brief overview of what IXL is for those who may not know and why it's exciting that it's a tool that's being utilized.
Yeah, so IXL is a web-based program that specifically works on, starts with a pre-assessment and kind of takes a snapshot of where our students are at and what skills that they lack, and then it gives them computer adaptive problems to work on to be able to remedy any deficiencies and bring them up to speed. And then it recognizes their achievements, and it's actually, when I watch the kids do it, they seem like they enjoy it. It's they get badges for it. It's almost like a game, and you can see also, and I check it weekly to see how we're doing, and you will see that the kids are doing it at home as well. So, and it gives me a printout by building and who's using it, and so they're really doing well. All the buildings are participating, including Compass Point. So they're doing a great job with that, and it focused on our 2 goal areas, math and reading.
Thank you. Yeah, when was IXL implemented?
Well, we've been using it for a couple of years at the middle school level in a small, just with a small select few. We added a total of 1,000 licenses. We may have had a couple hundred throughout the district before, but we now have 1,000. We're kind of piloting it. Just want to see how much growth did we get from the kids who are actually using IXL too. We'll do a separate study to see was there value added because of that? And then go from there. Then we can make recommendations to see if we want to further that investment, especially as we add more technology, as a tool. Oh, that's our progress. We're making it. Teachers are doing a great job, and the principals
Thank you.
Thank you.
and the students.
Next, we have the 2022 MASB Board of Directors Regional Election. So the board members received a list of candidates in our region for the Michigan Association of School Boards. And it's a 3-year term to represent our region, which is Region 8. And the board can nominate a candidate, and the vote should be cast by March 2nd. So tonight I will open up the floor if any board member wants to nominate one of the candidates presented.
I would nominate, I know I'm going to butcher his name, Michael Sawicki from Wyandotte Public Schools.
Okay. Would you like to make that motion?
I would make that motion to
Okay.
nominate. You can maybe say his last name again, aren't you?
Swyacki.
Swyacki.
You need a second for that?
Yes,
I
we
do
would
need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? Go ahead and call the roll.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes.
Motion passes. The board nominates Michael Swyacki from Wyandotte Public Schools. Next, we have a field trip recommendation. The high school would like approval to attend the annual band camp. This year, it will be held at Trine University, at July 11th to 16th of 2022. So the recommendation is that the board approve the annual band camp for this. I can say that a member reached out to me today and stated that the band directors and the booster president visited the place because this is a new location. Usually they have been going to Central. Central was not running band camps again this summer coming up. And that they are actually excited and hoping to maybe continue to stay at this location if it goes well, because they like this move. So is there a motion regarding the field trip for the band camp?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I do have just a quick comment. I'm a little disappointed that Central continues to cancel their camps. We've gone there for a lot of years, and I know our students enjoy going there. And you guys up here on the board and in the audience know I'm a big proponent of keeping our money in the state of Michigan. With that being said, this is a great opportunity, and as you mentioned, our band folks did actually go down and visit the university. I believe it's down northern Indiana, Angola-ish. But again, I'm disappointed that Central continues to not host these camps and that we're sending our tax dollars to other states.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have the Teamster Tentative Successor Agreement. So the administration has entered into an agreement with this bargaining group for a successor agreement under the same terms of the current agreement, the exact same terms. The previous agreement was set to expire February 1st of 22. This will give each side additional time to bargain in good faith. So the recommendation is that we approve the TA between Teamsters Local 214, which includes administrators, principals, assistant principals, supervisors, and coordinators, and the Anchor-based school district as presented. Is there a motion to accept that recommendation?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? go ahead and call the roll.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes.
Motion passes. Next, we have a new course for the high school and textbook approval. So the high school administration is recommending the addition of a street law course, which would cover the US Constitution and its practical application on our daily lives. The class would serve as a feeder for the mock trial team and would provide students who wish to pursue law degrees an option to fit their career interests. The cost of the textbook for the course would be $3,500 for a class set. If we do not have enough students request the course, we will not run it in the next year. I can add as well, Ms. Knox and I were able to review the textbook. And I think it was offered to Mr. Moses as well on the curriculum committee. And it looked, in talking with Mr. McDonald, it was expected that we were going to have a class likely of students for this course and interest in it. The mock trial team has been really successful the last few years. And so, you know, this will allow more students maybe to kind of get an idea if they want to go into that mock trial team and kind of help propel them into that interest area. So is there a motion to approve the street law course and its textbook?
Yeah, I'll move.
Make a motion.
Is there support?
I'll support.
Okay. Any other discussion?
If for some reason we don't fill the class, are we on the hook for the 3,500 or will we registration then take first at the end, take place first, and then we can order the text in the summer?
Yeah, we have not ordered them yet. We wouldn't order it until we were sure we were running a class.
Thank you.
Mr.
I was just gonna say, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Oh, I will add as well, I should have said this earlier, but the course will be open to 9th through 12th grade as well. Next, we have a request for approval for 7th grade football. So over the past several years, the lack of a 7th grade football team has kind of put our 8th grade team at a bit of a disadvantage. Other schools, and I know some board members can speak to this, cannot play against us because they prefer to schedule against other schools and districts where they can schedule both their 7th and 8th grade teams together. Therefore, we are sometimes relegated to playing much smaller schools and districts, and we end up, not having a sizable competition for, our district size versus theirs. In order to improve our program, that they are asking to begin to be able to play against sizable teams. So that would require a 7th grade football team for our district. So the recommendation was that the board approve the reinstatement of a 7th grade football team. Is there a motion for this?
I'll make a motion.
And support?
I'll support.
Okay, and discussion?
Just throw out there too that it'll also create balance amongst our program because Middle School South has already been allowed to have 7th graders to play because their team, they needed to fill out their roster. So it was only our Middle School North kids that couldn't play 7th grade football.
So South does have a roster?
Well, they didn't have enough kids to have an 8th grade football program, so they allowed all the 7th graders to play with the 8th graders. So when you were in South, 7th grade, you could play, but in 8th you could, or in North you couldn't, which.
Right. With the 7th grade program at North, are we able to have 7th graders from South also participate in this program?
Well, they already participate at
As
South.
in an 8th grade program?
In an 8th grade program, right? You don't want to take, I don't think you could take those from the South because they don't get enough
Don't have
8th
enough.
graders to have a team. Unless we can do something to remedy that. I mean, otherwise, yes, I think that would be an awesome idea to have a 7th grade football program down there, but we got to create interest down there first.
So we have an 8th grade program at both middle schools.
Correct.
Anchor Bay North can field their own team of 8th graders. They're not pulling 7th graders.
They
out.
usually have 55 8th graders show up to play football. For some reason, Middle School South typically gets maybe 12 to 15.
So we're creating a team at North, not at South.
I think it would give the,
Well, I
South
think
could be allowed as
create a team-
well.
We would
if
create a
we
team
could
at
staff
South
it.
if there was demand for it, or kids at South could probably play for the North team if they couldn't get on the 8th grade team. But as it stands right now, there's not enough players at South to create 2 teams.
Can we compete, Mr. Jankowski, with 7th graders from 2 middle schools merged into one team?
Yeah, that's an option. The goal is ultimately to get to the point where we could have standalone 7th and 8th grade teams at both schools.
Correct.
Right.
But yeah, that would be a possibility.
So this proposal from Mr. Teedy is for creating the program just at North. If at some point in the future we created one at South, it
It
would
would,
obviously.
We do the same
Double,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And is there anything you can do with the announcer fees? We know somebody locally that'll announce for free.
Yes, absolutely.
So if we could work on that as we get a little
Yes.
closer down the road, we'd appreciate it.
I think Mr. Green is going to be the new announcer. Just-
Yeah.
That's not what I was inferring.
Yeah.
It's not what I was inferring.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Great. We will move on to board comments and points of pride. We will start with Mr. Richards.
No pressure.
I apologize. I'd like to thank all the students and staff for the generous gifts during the School Board Appreciation Month. The apple pie was incredible, and I think we should start selling them. I'd like to thank all the elementary school families that helped donate food during the annual Feed the Bay food drive. Thank you to the school staff, students, and families for making this year's Feed the Bay drive a success. I'd like to recognize the Anchor Bay Hosta Club for the work they're doing while competing in the Strive for a Safer Drive competition. I really do appreciate that. Congratulations to the Anchor Bay North Captain of the Month, Katie Richards. I believe we're not related. Thank you for everything that you do. I'd like to thank the Student Council at Middle School North for the inspirational notes that they wrote for students for the first day of exams. I'd like to also thank Ms. Kessel and Ms. Van Hudson for their thoughtfulness. The Anchor Bay Boosters Reverse Raffle is Saturday, March 19th. The Anchor Bay School District is still hiring. We're looking for custodians, aquatic center staff, lunch aides, child care workers, and more. Come join a great team. Congratulations to the Anchor Bay Junior ROTC who participated at the Howell Drill Meet. 2 of the teams placed 3rd and 3 cadets placed in the top 10 in the unarmed knockout. I'd like to thank everyone that came out to the Anchor Bay Oscars, and congratulations to all the students. I'd like to also congratulate Naldrit February Students of the Month. I'd like to recognize Naldrit Elementary School students and Middle School North students that made Valentine's Day cards for veterans at the Michigan Veterans Home. The Student Council delivered the special cards, letters, and candy to thank them for their service. Congratulations to Anchor Bay Student of the Month, Aiden Pomrowski, Mackenzie Valletto, and Austin McMahon. Great job. There's still time to sign up for the Anchor Bay Softball Clinic for grades 3 through 8. Sign up ends March 17th. Iowa Little League registration is open. Opening day is April 30th. Anchor Bay Middle School Baseball Camp is March 19th at the high school. Congratulations to the January Student Athlete of the Month for January, Jeremy Zidzik, thank you. Congratulations to the Anchor Bay High School cheer team who finished first place at the MAC White Division competition, also back-to-back years. And congratulations to them for becoming district champs as well. Congratulations to senior Jeremy Zidzik. Jeremy qualified individually for the MHSAA Division I state meet in the 100-yard breaststroke. Congratulations to junior wrestler Kazi Nolan, who is heading to states. Kazi. Thank you. Kazi Nolan. Girls Bowling MAC White Awards were announced. Congratulations to Bailey Tomlin, Melanie Straub, who have been named all conference. Melanie Straub was also named conference MVP. Also, congratulations to Joanna Paulsois for being named JV MVP. I'd like to also recognize Scott Straub on the MAC White Coach of the Year. Congratulations to the girls bowling JV team that took home the MHSIBCA championship. Nice job. Congratulations to the boys varsity bowling team on the MAC White Division Championship team event runner-up in the Tri-County. Congratulations to freshman Max Reese for winning the MAC White Division singles event. My points of pride this month goes to the Anchor Bay High School cheer team. Congratulations and good luck at regionals. Thank you.
Always tough following Mr. Richards. So I'll just add a couple of things. Yes, it was so gracious, the gifts we received for School Board Appreciation Month. Really appreciate those. My parents also loved the apple pie. And other than that, varsity cheer, competitive cheer, they've been doing amazing this season. They'll be at regionals at 10 a.m. Saturday at Troy Athens. So if you can, if you have some time Saturday, come check it out. A little side note is high school football for all those incoming freshmen. Winter workouts have already started. There is a Facebook page and there are some amazing team moms you can reach out to. So you're not behind and you know everything that's going on. They've already released the 2022 schedule and calendar of workouts and practices and all that good stuff. So you can start planning now. So go ahead and they have a Facebook page, look that up and get started. And that is all I have to say.
I'd like to thank Mr. Richards for giving us that well-detailed report every week. That is, or every month. That's fantastic. And thank you to everybody in the district that's been working hard and taking on the extra role to get us through this these challenging times. I also just want to wish good luck to the host people that qualified for the state test. They're going to be in Traverse City this weekend. Hopefully doing good and making it to the next round. Other than that, I'm good.
I also want to thank Ms. Kenward and her group, if you will, Mr. McDonald and Mr. LaPerriere, all those folks that put together the board appreciation gifts. I too did enjoy the first half of the apple pie, and then I had to give it away because I ate half of it in one day. So that had to be given away. I dropped it off at a friend's house, said, here, it's delicious, please don't bring it back. I want to thank Mr. Jankowski. I heard some very positive things on the PD day and the format that you did this year, and it was appreciated by the teachers enough where they reached out to me to let me know. This weekend is the Lions Club Winterfest in downtown New Baltimore. I did see the libations tents going up for anyone who is of the adult drinking age. There's also a ton of events going on. There's cornhole tournaments, a road rally. This year they've added a guns versus hoses is what it's being called. It's a tug of war. It's going to take place on the beach on Sunday, I think around 11 or noon. I have to look at the agenda. New Baltimore Police versus the New Baltimore Fire. I'm sure the fire will cheat and bring people from opposing cities, but that's okay. And then again, the beer tents are there, and then the plunge, the polar plunge. I think the last I heard, there's over 100 people that will be jumping into Lake St. Clair at 1 p.m. on Sunday. So if you're so inclined, you can certainly register for that. If you'd rather just come down and make fun of those that actually jump into the freezing water, they do cut a hole right in the ice, so it's not jumping into a swimming pool or anything crazy like that. It's actually getting into the lake. That's all going on this weekend. Again, it starts Friday. I think the tent opens at 5. They got bands, DJs, there's a couple of tents, and it goes through Sunday at 5 p.m.
Okay. I too want to say thank you for all the board appreciation gifts and congratulations to our cheer team and good luck this weekend. And I also just wanted to thank the board members up here who appeased Mr. Jankowski and I and came to a board workshop at 9 o'clock on a Friday until, or I'm sorry, Saturday, 9 a.m. on a Saturday. And we were here till about 2, but it was a very productive day. And I think it was worthwhile. And I think most of it, we agree. But other than that, I will close the comments. We have legislative updates.
Yeah, just quickly, I gave, now that all of the holidays have passed, the breaks have passed, COVID shutdown that they had has passed, things are beginning to start moving. And this is really a precursor to what ultimately will be the budget deal, and then ultimately the lame duck session that'll be at the end of the year. Just want to highlight them really quick. The first two, this is just flexibility for those districts that are either had to close because of threats or closed because of COVID, so that they could handle meet their clock hours. We've been fine. We've only used the 3 snow days, so we are underneath. There's a 9-day threshold. So we have, but there are quite a few districts that have exceeded that already. The next one, 3, is important, especially as we look to go towards a bond, where this is, the state has always had to charge a floor of at least 3% for bonds. And now they would get rid of that floor, and you would just get the market rate for that. And I knew this had great, you can see it's passed the House 102-3. So it was bipartisan. We knew this, it was just getting held up with everything else. So it's seen some movement, which is good news to us. It would allow us to potentially we wouldn't have to refinance, so we could save money on refinancing in order to kind of move forward and save bond funds. Just some other things that are going along with the pension calculations. That's something else that I discussed last month, where the state's starting to take this layered approach, which would really give them a better kind of accounting for all of that, so that they could really start knocking out pension debt. Then, and you can see that too had great bipartisan support, 96-5, it passed the House. Then the other ones that are probably a little bit more, I would say, controversial is the posting of like lesson plans and so on as they go across. Not necessarily, we're not necessarily opposed to all this. It's just very hard for teachers to post everything before the first day of school. It's like telling the best analogy I've heard is like telling a doctor, hey, how are you going to treat everybody for the next year? And you have to post that now. Well, we don't. We're working on a personalized manner where if kids are behind, we might have to take a different approach and do different things. So it's really how the details come out on that will be interesting. And the one that might have, number 8 is one that might have pertinence to us, because, you know, where Compass Point was located, there are now some marijuana dispensaries that are going in there. And so that would be affected by that, because that is still technically considered a school area for the time being. Then 9 is another one that will impact. This goes back to the temporary door locks, those night lock system you might have heard with Oxford. There's been some dispute about whether school districts could use those, and what this does is basically it would allow, the state would give permission to everybody, because it's been hit or miss in some areas. And then 10 is the learning material, and then 11 is also the posting of the curriculum. So those are updates.
Okay. And then board committee updates. I mean, I know the curriculum committee, myself, as I stated earlier, and Ms. Knox and Mr. Moses are a part of. We did meet with Mr. Jankowski and Mr. McDonald to review the indicators for the street law course, as well as the textbook. And we had the opportunity to view the textbook as well. I think that's the only committee that we've had meet. Okay, and the last thing on our agenda is a closed session pursuant to Open Meetings Act 8B to review a student expulsion. And then we will come back and take action regarding that, and then likely just be adjourning. So is there a motion to convene into closed session?
So moved.
I'll second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, we will return to open session at 9:47. So returning from closed session regarding student discipline, is there a motion to be made?
I'll make a motion to, thanks.
Need the number for the record. Nope, just read the number.
For student 18000118873 to be expelled per state law and to be up for reinstatement, petition reinstatement in 60 days, starting from the first day of her suspension. And possible reinstatement after 90 days.
Support.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Brookmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes.
Motion passes. Do I have a motion to end the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned at 9:48.